I should probably begin by coming clean and confessing that I have had a complicated relationship with the Apostle Paul. Paul is, of course, the primary New Testament figure after Jesus. He is the hero missionary who spread the gospel throughout the known world. I am indebted to Paul. I admire him greatly. Undaunted and courageous, legitimate hero of our faith. But I have had a hard time warming up to this guy. He's cerebral and driven. He was a fanatic persecutor of Christians before his conversion. And then after he encountered Christ on the road to Damascus, he became an equally wild-eyed missionary. He thinks strategically. He writes long, complicated theological treatments. He's just never struck me as the guy I'd like to spend a weekend with. Don't get me wrong, he's got heart. He's got a great burden for people who do not know Jesus Christ. He dedicated his life with mission and purpose. I just want, a little more. I want to find myself in the biblical characters. I can find myself in Thomas doubting. I can find myself when Peter gets a little hot-headed. When Gideon is in the wine press playing scared, I can see myself. When Leah's picked last because of her looks, I can relate. I have trouble connecting with Paul. If you went back and cataloged all the sermons I have preached since I've been your pastor, you might notice that very few of my sermons are from the letters of Paul, and I'm trying to do better. Today, I'm trying to do better. But I love the Gospels. I love the Old Testament stories. They have faces. Paul doesn't have many faces, not many stories. Paul has theology. Paul has long sentences that are hard to diagram on the board, much less preach. But the Gospels and the narratives, they've got people in action and guys fishing and boys with lunch pails and giants and slingshots. And the Pauline epistles have doctrine. I'm trying. And in seminary, in an effort to try to warm up to Paul a little bit, I took on a research paper titled Paul's Theology of Forgiveness. Now, Jesus makes so much of forgiveness all through his teaching and preaching. I figured if I got to understand Paul on forgiveness a little better, I might like him a little more. He has virtually nothing on forgiveness. Paul uses transactional language, justification, reconciliation. Jesus talks a relational language of forgiveness. And I love and resonate with that kind of relational word. Paul wants our ledgers to square. He wants our margins to line up. I'm just saying, I want a little more heart from this guy. Hard-driven, missionary, on task, purpose. And then it happens. In 2 Corinthians, the great apostle spills his heart, and I get to see the heartbeat and humanity of a road-weary apostle. It's late in his ministry. Corinthian opposition is hardened against him. Some of his own Christian community drifted away because of outside influences. He feels like he's loving more than he's being loved in return. He's escaped Damascus, feared for his life in Asia, carries a thorn in his flesh. Here he is, our great New Testament hero, but he starts off this letter to the church he loves, confessing that he is utterly beyond measure, weighed down, and despairing of even living at all. And he confesses that he has conflicts on the outside and fears within. And finally, I found a guy I can identify with. Kind of strikes me like the songwriter Paul Simon when he said, "Why am I getting soft in the middle when the rest of my life is so hard?" See, I can identify with that. Sometimes even the great heroes of the faith sing the blues. And there may be no better blues line in all of the New Testament than Paul saying, "Afflicted in every way, conflicts without, fears within." It's not something we talk about much, but every honest person in here could confess conflicts without and fears within, in spite of what we're posting on social media. Our Facebook posts don't lie, they just tell part of the story. We post about fine dining experiences and grand events and family gatherings that would make Norman Rockwell jealous. We present to each other our idealized self, but we rarely get honest about the fact that we carry conflict without, fears within. But I know you have them because I know something about your prayers. Now, you'll be grateful to know I have no way of listening in on your prayers. Your prayers are between you and God, and there's no cartoon bubble over your head that lets anybody else see your petitions to God. But I do know there is one prayer that you pray over and over and over. There is one pleading prayer that occupies most of your prayer life, and when the day is over and the TV is turned off, it's the one thing you can't get out of your mind, which is why you sometimes keep the TV on or read a romance novel till you fall asleep or play video games, because if there's any idle time, if there's any quiet space, you're reminded again of the conflict without, the fear within. And one of the challenges of preaching is that each of you has come in here with a different burden. Your prayer is different. No two stories are the same. And our consuming prayer changes over time. What I am praying, howling at the moon at night about, is not the same thing it was 10 years ago. Each aching heart in the room has a different pain, but we are all praying in some part of our life, God, deliver me. For one in the room, it might be that another Mother's Day has passed and the fertility medication is still not working, and God, please. For another, the car needs work. My son needs braces. My SunTrust alert has told me I'm overdrawn again. God, please. Most of my friends were invited to her birthday party. I was not invited. I feel shut out and worthless. I have no friends. God, please. He's usually not this forgetful. But in the last few months, he started repeating himself. He started misplacing things. And somebody too casually said, early onset Alzheimer's. God, please. He's not right. I don't know if it's drugs or alcohol or if he's just lost, but he's not right, and I don't know how to help him. God, please. Since her death, I feel so alone. The kids are busy, the grandkids are busy, the house is big and lonely, and I wonder if anybody cares that I feel this alone. God, please. And the doctor said the two most vulgar words in the English language. She said, malignant and inoperable. God, please. You see, we have as many prayers as we have people in this room, and I don't know what yours is, but I know that everybody on every pew brings some prayer for release. And the preacher scrambles to know how to speak to so many different kinds of pain. The Apostle Paul was writing to a gathered room that had all kind of gathered pain. They were being persecuted. They were afflicted in other ways. He is aware of their pain. He's aware of his pain. There are conflicts without. There are fears within. He knows what personal pain looks like, and he writes us this to remind us that our Christian journey does not come with bubble wrap. We're not protected from the physical and emotional pain that the rest of the world experiences. The victorious Christ lives within us, but as Paul says, we have this treasure in clay jars. We are afflicted in every way, perplexed, persecuted, struck down. In fact, in a few cases, the Christian commitment creates more problems like it did for Paul. I have a friend who really was a drug dealer. He wasn't a on-the-corner street pusher. He was a drug runner when Christ's love found him and changed him. He would pick up drugs in the panhandle of Florida and drive them to Chicago. His family lived here in Atlanta. They had a pretty normal life here. All they knew was that Daddy traveled a lot for work. He'd leave home with a sport coat. He drove a Taurus. He had one of those bars across the back seat that you hang your clothes on. So he would look like any other businessman traveling up and down the road, except that his trunk was full of taped up packages. He had an apartment in Chicago, a condo there, just had cash stashed everywhere. And his children, his two girls, never questioned why they were the only family in the neighborhood that had a wicker basket in the hall full of cash. Mom would call out, get some lunch money. Oh yeah, uniform money's due this week. Get in the basket, get what you need for today, take it to school. Well, when he became a Christian, everything about his financial reality changed. He stopped his former life. He tried to get away from the very real anguish and pain of that life, but his Christian commitment in this case created new problems. He had no job. He had no resume. He had no references, and the money was running out quickly. Now, his story's pretty rare. The truth is that it's seldom the case for most of us that our faith creates new hardships. But it's true for all of us that our faith does not protect us from them. The baptized life comes with all of life's usual doses of pain. We are afflicted in every way, perplexed, persecuted, and struck down. But Paul's response to this is not to go to a corner and get in a fetal position. After a long season of persecution and rejection, physical pain and disappointment, the apostle is honest about his pain, but he's not a victim of it. There is a power within. There is an awareness of Christ's victory that he carries so he can stand toe-to-toe with all that life doles out. And so Paul says, we are afflicted in every way, but not crushed. perplexed, but not driven to despair, persecuted, but not forsaken, struck down, but not destroyed, always carrying in the body the death of Jesus so that the life of Jesus may be made visible in our bodies. Affliction is part of the Christian experience, but feeling crushed by it isn't. We feel perplexed like everybody else, but because we are people of hope, we are not driven to despair. We may feel persecuted, but the Spirit of Jesus within us means that we are never forsaken. And even when we are struck down, we will not be destroyed. This power to overcome is not just sprinkled among a few of the chosen believers. Every believer who is aware can access the confidence of Paul in the face of adversity. Some of you were here Wednesday night, heard Dan Hayes speak. He just finished a beautiful 4-night series on prayer. He told the story about doing an interview with a student who had called him, and he started talking to the interviewer about his efforts to enlarge and care for his inner life, and the interviewer had no idea what he was talking about. But our inner life, our internal realities, are where our hopes and fears live. It's where our motivations and our goals are formed, where we sort out what is temporary from what is eternal. And Dan spends time there, you can tell. The rooms of the inner life is where hope is nurtured, where the comfort of the Holy Spirit lives. And when we retreat to the inner life in prayer, we find perspective. And in the silence of that space, we can say, afflictions? Yeah. But I've experienced affliction before. God's carried me through. God will carry me again. I will not be crushed. Yeah, I'm perplexed. I don't understand. And when I'm quiet, I realize that there's a whole lot I don't understand, and that God is God, and that God loves me. I will live in hope, not in despair. I feel lonely, on edge, persecuted. Some people feel kind of outside the mainstream. You remember the line from George Gobel on The Tonight Show when he asked, "Do you ever get the feeling that the world was a tuxedo and you're a pair of brown shoes?" Some people feel that way. But in my prayer, when I spend time inside, I know the companionship of Christ and that I'm never alone. The one who is victorious over death lives within me, and I will not be destroyed. Paul had a big inner life. I urge you to stay away from feel-good preachers that tell you that somehow the Christian life immunizes us from the gravel of everyday living. It doesn't. It did not protect Paul, and it does not keep us from experiencing every life experience. But there lives within us one who has conquered every enemy, and his power lives in your prayer life. So keep praying that one prayer, keep knocking on that door, but also make time to listen, to stretch out your inner life of prayer so that it can make more real the promises and more sturdy the assurances. Because we will continue to face conflicts without and fears within, but the Spirit of the living Jesus lives within us. We will never be crushed, and we will never be alone. Thanks be to God.